You know, about a year ago, I did a video where I built an Xbox 360 collection for under $100. That was a pretty damn good video, I'm not going to lie to you. What's going on, everybody? I'm Jay. Welcome to Square Pegs. Glad you're here, talking the 360 again. I looked back at that video, and I looked at the prices I had quoted then, and I realized that every game on that list, save one, has gone up in value, some of them exponentially, to the point where that $100 collection is no longer feasible. It's like $150 now to get that entire set of 10 games. So I decided to go back to that today. We're revisiting the $100 collection on the Xbox 360 because so many videos lately have been focused on how much you need to worry about prices skyrocketing on the 360. So I've got 12 games here that are going to cost you under $17 each. Most of them are under 10. There are a couple of sports games on here, so prepare yourself if you're not a sports fan. We're going to kick things off right now with one of my favorites. It's my favorite sport. It is a brilliant entry from the NHL series from EA Sports. This is NHL 10 at $3.10. I always say that when a new console generation starts, if you're a fan of sports games, you probably want to give it a few years before they really settle in to what their new identity is going to be on that console generation, and this is true for NHL 10. Gameplay was innovated to be a little bit more fluid and to have some really solid impact as you were playing. It felt like NHL hockey. This is the one that I think felt the closest to NHL 94 for me. It did use the sticks, it didn't just use the buttons, but that's okay because it played brilliantly well. One of the other things I really enjoyed about this was they had first-person fighting, which works better in theory than it does in practice, if I'm being honest, but it's still pretty cool to actually like drop the gloves and get into a Donnybrook with another player in first-person mode. I think it's really cool. I would love to see that come back, and it would be amazing if they just kind of incorporated fight night, fight mechanics in there. I think it would be brilliant. I love the NHL series. I'm an unabashed apologist for the entire series, and I can't help but enjoy when NHL realizes that they can be the most innovative game in the EA Sports lineup. And they did that with NHL 10. It's the first time the game really felt like it leapt forward on the 7th generation, and it's a lot of fun. And $3, man, you can't beat that. I've talked about this game on the channel in the past. It's one of my favorite sports games on the console. It's a fantastic entry and a brilliant representation of the sport of tennis. At $5.59, this is Top Spin 2. Featuring one of the best tennis physics engines I've ever played, a huge roster of 24 professional tennis players, amazing court designs, and a robust character creator where you're actually able to put yourself into the Pro Tour, Top Spin 2 is one of the best tennis games ever made. Now, I know for a lot of people it's going to be 2K Sports Tennis or Sega Sports Tennis on the Dreamcast, and those are all great entries as well. And I'm really intrigued to see how the new Top Spin game looks on modern consoles, but for my money, Top Spin 2 is the one that I have put the most gameplay into and had the most fun with. It's a brilliant title with some amazing gameplay, and just one of my favorite video game experiences is playing this one. And it's dirt cheap. You can't go wrong with a dirt cheap game. All right, switching things up a little bit now, not a sport. This is a futuristic run and gun game where you are playing a police officer that has superpowers, and you need to go around and take out the bad guys in massive gang warfares. It is a brilliant title, a lot of fun, a classic Xbox 360 game, coming in at $6.29. This is the original Crackdown. Crackdown is one of those games that I forget about just because of how ubiquitous it is to the 360, and it's just kind of one of those games I take for granted because it's always been there. It's always been in the collection, except for the part where it wasn't. For years, I didn't own it. I just picked this back up recently a few months ago because I went to go play it. I saw someone do a video on it. I think it might have been Gamer Aimer mentioned it. And I went, yeah, you know what? I want to play Crackdown. I haven't played that in years. And I went to my 360 stack and it wasn't there. So I picked up another copy of it. And it's so nice to just hop in the game and find something so bloody familiar and so much fun that you can't help but enjoy yourself. It's an amazing game. It's ridiculous. It's hyper violent. It's arguably celebrating a police state, but it's a really fun game, and I just love it. Absolutely brilliant. All right, this one's an extreme sport, so I hope you'll forgive me on this one, but this is just a brilliant entry in the series. It is sadly the swan song for the series as well, so we haven't had another entry from SSX since. Coming in at $6.32, this is the 2012 release of SSX. Now, I don't spend a ton of time on SSX. I've talked about it numerous times on the channel in the past, but just to kind of recap the high point levels of what I talk about with SSX, it is a fantastic game. It doesn't have the same spirit and soul as the original SSX games did on the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube, but it's still a really fun game with a stunning visual appearance and really, really solid gameplay. It just doesn't quite have that same spirit that the originals did, but still, super fun game. If you enjoy the original SSX series, you'll love this one. It's a wonderful title, absolutely fantastic, and one of the better extreme sports experiences on the 360. On a console that is loaded with fantastic racing games, the Need for Speed series really, really shone strong on the Xbox 360. There's a lot of great options, but today I'm looking at one that I think a lot of people really love, and coming in at $6.71 is a classic entry in the Need for Speed series. This is Need for Speed Hot Pursuit. Ain't nothing like driving fast and taking chances, and while I do think Need for Speed The Run is my favorite Need for Speed game on the Xbox 360, Need for Speed Hot Pursuit is probably more widely accepted as being a better game, and there's definitely arguments that can be made that way. First off, you get two completely different gameplay experiences. You can play as one of the drivers, or you can play as one of the cops that's chasing down the drivers that are illegally racing through the city. You have amazing vehicles to choose from as you're playing. You get amazing race options and just different events throughout the game as you're playing. The environments look great, the car models look great, the music is fantastic, although completely turned down on this footage because, hey, I don't want a copyright claim. And I just adore it. It's one of those series that, to me, probably could have faded out in the past, but I'm so glad that this got stuck with, and it's just turned into something magnificent. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit is brilliant, an absolutely wonderful title. One of the most signature Xbox games, a fantastic entry from the series, the original entry from the series as well. This, coming in at $7.25, is Gears of War. What more needs to be said about Gears of War than has been said in the past by people significantly more talented than me? It is one of the best third-person shooters ever released. It spawned a franchise that is still well thought of to this day. It gave you memorable characters in Marcus Phoenix. It gave you unbelievable weapon designs with the chainsaw bayonet and fantastic, fantastic combat options with amazing cover play that just works. It's brilliant. There have been so many games that have borrowed elements from Gears of War since this released that I don't think we can overlook its impact on the industry as a whole. This is one of the most important games released in the 7th generation, and to this day, it plays brilliantly well. And every Xbox 360 collection needs to have Gears of War in it. I learned about this one from an Xbox 360 Hidden Gems video on Metal Jesus Rock's channel. This is a brilliant title. It's a fantastic look into the XCOM universe. Does things a little bit differently, set back in the 1950s, and it's pretty cheap. This is coming in at $7.75. This is The Bureau, XCOM Declassified. I was wrong. It does not take place in the 50s. It takes place in the 60s. It's definitely different because it's not taking place in the future. You're not playing as aliens. You're playing as humans. You play as a character named Agent Carter, and you are going to be using alien technology and your wits to be able to work your way through these different combat scenarios. I love this game. This is one that I did not know existed. I was a big fan of the original XCOM series, and when I found out that this existed via Metal Jesus Rocks, like I mentioned, I immediately jumped on it. I actually found this at a movie store up here in Kalamazoo that was going out of business, and I got it for $1.50, which is almost criminal for how good of a game it is, but I'll take it. I don't mind. I really, really love this one. It is a magnificent game and plays beautifully well on the 360. After the series saw a fantastic reboot on the Xbox, PS2, and GameCube generation, we got another reboot on the Xbox 360 in the Prince of Persia universe. Using the Xbox 360 to its fullest advantage with incredible visuals and fantastic music, Prince of Persia comes in at $8.62. Now, I've gone on record as saying that the Prince of Persia, Sands of Time on the 6th generation is one of my favorite video games of all time. I thought it was transcendent. I thought it directly impacted how games play today. You can see every telltale sign of what the Assassin's Creed series became in that one. You can see elements of Spider-Man and of Batman Arkham Asylum in that game. And these continue here on the 2008 reboot on the Xbox 360. Visually, this has a massive upgrade over the Sands of Time series, and there's also some really solid upgrades audio-wise as well. I mean, obviously you're getting a generational leap forward. You know it's going to look and sound better. But the gameplay is where it's at, and the gameplay in this game is solid, fluid, fun, and fast. You are playing as what they call history's most agile warrior, and that shows off based on your acrobatics that you're able to pull off. I don't think it's as solid story-wise as Sands of Time, Two Thrones, and Warrior Within, but This game here is absolutely brilliant, and I think it is one of the most underrated games from the 7th generation. Love this title, absolutely worth playing. Longtime viewers of the channel will know how much of a fan of Sega I am, and how much I love compilation discs. So when I saw Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection on the Xbox 360, I pulled the trigger immediately. I didn't even know this existed up until about a month and a half, 2 months ago. And it's a great price. It's $9.64, and you get something like 40 games on it, plus a ton of unlockables. All right, so you guys are going to see some menu options and some brief gameplay from a few different games here for Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection here on the 360, but I want to go over the list of games that are on this particular collection because it's kind of massive. Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle, Alien Storm, Altered Beast, Beyond Oasis, Bonanza Brothers, Columns, Comic Zone, Decap Attack starring Chuck D. Head, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, Dynamite Headdy, Echo the Dolphin, Echo Tides of Time, E-SWAT, Fatal Labyrinth, Flicky, Gain Ground, Golden Axes 1, 2, and 3, Kid Chameleon, Phantasy Stars 2, 3, and 4, Y-Star, Shining Force 1 and 2, Shining in the Darkness, Shinobi 3, Return of the Ninja Master, Sonic 3, Sonic 3D Blast, Sonic and Knuckles, Sonic Spinball, Sonic 2, Streets of Rage 1, 2, and 3, Super Thunderblade, Vector Man, and Vector Man 2. And that's just the stuff that's unlocked, because if you want to unlock all of the games, you also get to play Golden Axe Warrior, Phantasy Star, Alien Syndrome, Altered Beast, Congo Bongo, Fantasy Zone, Shinobi, Space Harrier, and Zaxxon. So you get a ton of Master System and arcade games as well. And they're all playing really well. The ones I've tried so far are actually looking really good, so this is a great compilation, a great pickup, and if you're a Genesis fan, this needs to be in your Xbox 360 collection. Might not be their best entry on the Xbox 360, but it's a game I think gets overlooked frequently for stuff like Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts as well as Viva Pinata. I love Rare, I think they're a brilliant developer, and I actually really enjoy Cameo Elements of Power, and it's under $10. It's a $9.88 game. Now, I genuinely like Cameo Elements of Power. I think there is some really solid gameplay and some really solid design work here, hidden behind some unfortunately clunky controls, but when you actually get into it and you kind of get the feel for how the game plays, it goes from being something that feels like it's a few generations too old to being something that is absolutely brilliant. Like, to me, this feels like it started off life as an N64 game and just kind of advanced forward through the Xbox generation and onto the 360. It's got a brilliant design. Like, I love the enemy and character designs in the game. The music is spectacular. The voice work is really funny. It's classic Rare. Of course it is. And the kind of overall feeling of the game is really excellent as well. Like, it's really cool to get a female protagonist. It's really neat to get the different shape-shifting powers that she has. And the storyline, while basic, works. It's fun. I really like Cameo Elements of Power. It's, like I said, not the best Rare game. I think that would probably go to Viva Pinata on the 360, but I do love it, and it's definitely worth playing. A 3D entry in the Castlevania series can be met with some, let's say, raised eyebrows, if we remember back to the N64 days, but this one here, Castlevania Lords of Shadow, is a really fun game with a good difficulty level and some fantastic visuals. Coming in at $11.35, this is a brilliant game. Now, I won't tell you that Castlevania Lords of Shadow is my favorite entry in the Castlevania series, that or its sequel. I think there's some good points to be had here. I think it is a nice evolutionary leap forward for the Castlevania series for it to be in 3 dimensions, but I still prefer the side-scrolling 2D action that, we all kind of know and love from our time on the NES and the SNES. But this is a really quality game, albeit a difficult one, with some curious control schemes at times. Like, there are certain elements of the title that I think are a little bit overly difficult and don't really lend itself to a conducive good time to play, but I think the good outweigh the bad far more often than they don't. Like, there are certain things where there are quick time events where it tells you that you have to do a certain thing, but it doesn't really tell you when, it doesn't tell you how, it just says you need to press the right trigger, and you kind of have to figure it out from there. So, and for me, it never actually triggered when I pressed the right trigger. It wasn't until I just started mashing all the buttons when the quick time event looked like it should have gone off that I was successful. But the gameplay itself is really fun. The combat is really well done. The enemy designs are fantastic. The character design for the main protagonist of Gabriel is wonderful. And the soundtrack and just the overall setting of the game is brilliant. Like I said, I still prefer 2D Castlevania to this, but this is a nice step forward and a really, really fun title. All right, last but not least, we are going to the fighting genre, but not a typical fighter, not anything like Mortal Kombat, not a Street Fighter, and certainly not Injustice. We're going to go with Persona 4 Ultra Mix, a game that I just recently picked up. It's a really brilliant game featuring characters from Persona 4, and it comes in at only $16.79. So I've said it on the channel in the past, but I came to the Persona series very late. I played Persona 3 and Persona 4 briefly, but I didn't really get into the franchise until Persona 5 Royal on the PS4. And going back and realizing all the various different kinds of games there are in the Persona series, like there's dancing games, there's fighting games like we have here, I was really surprised. But I really, really enjoy Persona 4 Arena. This is a quality game. The fighting mechanics are fairly simple and straightforward. Like if it's a fighting game, you've played it before. If you've played a fighting game before, you know how you're going to play this one. I really dig the Persona feature because it feels a little bit like the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure game on the Dreamcast where you call out your stand. It's really neat. I dig this one. This is a fun title, and I'm not going to say it's the deepest game out there, but there are a ton of different modes that you're able to play. There's lesson mode, where you're actually able to learn about the game a little bit, story mode, arcade mode, a score attack mode, training mode, challenges, a versus mode, and then there's the Xbox Live stuff, which I honestly didn't check to see if it's still up. I would be surprised if it is. There's a ton of awesome characters in here that are really, really fun to play as, and just the game is wonderful. It looks, sounds, and plays brilliantly well. This is a quality fighting game. If you have not played it, you really should check it out. There you have it, folks. Under $100 for a fantastic collection of games. This is a great way to start an Xbox 360 collection, or if you're just looking to add to an already existing 360 collection, you can get this for under 100 bones. Now with tax, it might come out a little bit over 100, but if you're going by just the value of the games on the price charting API, this is a pretty good get. Let me know in the comments down below what games you would add, what games you would subtract, if there's any you think I overlooked, if there's any that you wouldn't have put on here because you don't like it, I'd love to hear from you. Till next time, folks, I've been Jay. I appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me. If this is your first time here, that is super awesome. I'm glad you found the channel. Why don't you click that thumbs up like button down below? The engagement really helps the channel out, and if you really enjoyed the content, click that subscribe button as well. I'd love to have you stick around. Till next time, remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.